Two-factor authentication is one of the easiest ways to secure your accounts, but how do you set it up? In this video, I'll show you how to set up the Microsoft Authenticator app in just a few minutes. But why Microsoft Authenticator? Well, you simply want to make sure you're using a trusted, credible authenticator app. Those include apps like Authy, Google Authenticator, and Microsoft Authenticator. I've already done a tutorial on Google Authenticator, but if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and prefer their apps, as many do, you can use Microsoft Authenticator instead. So if you'd rather use Google Authenticator, go check out my other tutorial. But these same concepts apply to any authenticator app. The important thing is that you're taking the time to secure your accounts and you're choosing a credible authenticator app. After downloading the Microsoft Authenticator app from the App Store or Play Store, go ahead and open the app. If this is your first time opening the app, you'll have to agree to the privacy policy, so I'll just tap accept. And then you may be asked if you want to improve Microsoft Authenticator by sharing data. This is disabled by default. I'm just going to leave it that way and tap continue. It's worth noting that Microsoft does not offer a Windows or Mac desktop version, so you will need a mobile device to use Microsoft Authenticator. Now you'll be asked to sign in with your Microsoft account. This is optional, and you only need to sign in with Microsoft if you want to set up 2FA for that Microsoft account itself, or if you want to enable cloud backups for your authentication codes. If you don't want to set up 2FA for your Microsoft account itself, or you don't care about cloud backups, go ahead and hit the skip button in the top right corner. Just keep in mind that you can still sign in with your Microsoft account to set up 2FA without being forced to use their cloud backups. However, if you choose to store your keys locally, you may be permanently locked out of accounts if your device is ever lost, stolen, or damaged. Personally, I always recommend backing up your authentication keys to the cloud. If you aren't sure whether you trust Microsoft to do this, check out the end of this video because I have some recommendations for alternatives. Alright, so I'm going to sign in with my Microsoft account, and you may be asked whether you want to allow notifications before you sign in. I'll tap allow, and then I will choose my Microsoft account and enter my password. After signing in, you may also be asked if you want to enable Face ID. So just by signing in with Microsoft, if I tap finish, you can see that two-factor authentication is set up for the Microsoft account itself. If you want to add additional Microsoft accounts, you can hit the plus button in the top right corner, and you can choose either a personal account or work or school account, and all you have to do is sign in with the account, and then 2FA is automatically set up. Now, unfortunately, that process is more complicated for other accounts, which I'm assuming may be the reason why you're watching this tutorial, but it's not rocket science. It's very easy to do once you've done it a few times. So let me walk you through the process. Now, if you have access to a second device, such as a laptop or tablet, I would highly recommend grabbing that because this is a lot easier to do with a second screen, and let me explain why. If I tap Other, you'll need to allow access to your camera. You'll see that the easiest way to set up 2FA on websites is by scanning a QR code that they display when you walk through the menu. Now, if you only have one device, you obviously can't scan a QR code on your phone using your phone, and I'll show you what to do if you only have your phone. Don't worry, you can still set this up, but if you do have a computer or tablet, I would highly recommend bringing it in because it's going to be so much easier to just point your phone at your computer, scan the QR code, and then you're done with the setup. So first, let me show you how to walk through this process, assuming you have a second device. The process is going to vary from website to website, and this is not a comprehensive tutorial on how to set it up for every website you could possibly think of, but just keep in mind that the steps are more or less the same. So here's how you do this on X. I've got X pulled up here, and you would start by going to More and Settings and Privacy, which is already the screen I'm on, and then you'll go to Security and Account Access and Security, and then you'll click two-factor authentication, check the box to enable Authenticator app, and X is asking for my password. I'll click confirm, protect your account, get started. Now, this is why I say it's easier if you have two devices, because as you can see, the QR code is displayed on my laptop. So all I have to do is take my phone, and remember all we did to get here, I just hit the plus button in the top right corner, and I said Other, and all I need to do is scan the QR code, and boom. Now, you may think the setup process is complete, but it's not. There is one more step you need to do on every website, so don't miss this. You can't just close the app and assume that it's done. You need to go back to the app or website and click Next and enter the 2FA code that's generated. So I'll just put in 298.238 and click Confirm. And now two-factor authentication is enabled, so make sure you input the first code, because if you don't and you just assume it's done, you close the app, you move on, you didn't actually set up two-factor authentication. So make sure you see the confirmation from the website. X says you're all set. Now, we also have this option to get a backup code, and I would recommend downloading that and saving it somewhere. You can either do it old school and print it out and put it in a safe, or what I would recommend is storing it in a password manager, and we'll talk about that more later, but I definitely would download the backup code and save it somewhere. Don't just glaze past it and click done, because if you do, you ever lose access to your Authenticator app and you don't have the backup code, you might be permanently locked out of your account. Now, what if your phone is the only device you have? Well, let's walk through that same setup process on X using only my phone. So I'm gonna go over to the menu here and settings and privacy, security and account access, security, and two-factor authentication. And I will toggle authentication app on, enter my password, and click confirm, and get started. I'm going fast through these steps because we're essentially repeating what we just did on the computer, but on the mobile app. Now, X is a little bit confusing here. Most apps are probably just going to show you a QR code at this stage, but X tries to make it easier by saying link the app to your X account, and it tries to guess which authenticator app you're using. I did this earlier and it opens 1Password, which is not what we want, and it could open Apple passwords if you don't have 1Password installed. So what I would recommend is tapping where it says link on another device, and when you see the QR code, you know you're in the right place. So any of these apps or websites should have an option somewhere underneath or above the QR code saying like can't scan the QR code, or maybe they'll just put a code right below the QR code. On X, I need to tap this little link that says can't scan the QR code. And this is the code that we're looking for. So like I said, sometimes that's displayed right under the QR code. So if you see a big long code like this, this is what you're looking for. If not, just look for a link on the page. I promise you will be able to get this code on just about any website or app that you're setting up. So all we need to do is copy this code, go over to Microsoft Authenticator, and then you just hit that plus button, other, and then you want to click where it says enter code manually. Account name is X, and then our secret key will paste and finish. Now, we have to follow the same exact process we did on the laptop. So let's go ahead and copy this code that was generated, go back over to X and say enter code, and we're going to paste the 6-digit code and tap confirm. And then once again, we have the opportunity to download those backup codes, which I would highly recommend doing if you're presented with that option. But since this is a tutorial and I'm not actually saving all this, I will just tap done. Okay, so what about cloud backups? If you want your authenticator codes to sync between devices when you sign in with your Microsoft account, here's what you do. On iOS, you hit this little hamburger menu in the top left corner. I believe on Android, it's an ellipsis icon in the top right, but since I'm using an iPhone, that's the screen recording you're seeing here. So hit that hamburger menu and then tap settings, and you'll want to turn iCloud backup to on, and then we'll just say replace backup because I've already set this up before. But for you, you should be able to just turn iCloud backups on. Now, it's a little bit confusing. If you have an iPhone, it uses iCloud to back up your vault, but you still need to be signed in with your Microsoft account. So technically you're using your iCloud storage and your data is stored on Apple servers, though your vault should be like kilobytes, so I wouldn't worry about running out of iCloud space. But the thing to remember is that on iPhone, your vault will be stored on Apple servers. On Android, it's stored on Microsoft servers, and you have unlimited storage, but again, we're talking kilobytes here, which is pretty negligible. Now, one downside to this setup is that Apple, for whatever reason, forces the vault to be stored in iCloud, where on Android, Microsoft is storing it on their servers. And what this means is if you have an iPhone, an Android tablet, or an Android phone and an iPad, you're not going to be able to sync your codes between those two devices. I would imagine that's probably an edge case, and most people are probably in one ecosystem or another. But even if you're thinking that's never going to be a problem because I'm all in one ecosystem, what if you decide you want to change platforms in the future? If you're migrating from iPhone to Android or vice versa, you're still going to run into that problem of having to manually disable two-factor authentication on all of your accounts by logging in, turning it off, and then setting it up on a new device, walking through that process on every single account again. If you want a safer alternative, I would highly recommend a cross-platform password manager like Bitwarden, ProtonPass, or 1Password that can securely sync not only your authentication codes, but also your passwords, passkeys, backup codes, and other personal information. This video isn't sponsored by a password manager, and Microsoft Authenticator is still a trusted, reliable authenticator app, but if you really want to future-proof things, I do think it's worth making that investment in a password manager, and specifically a cross-platform one that's available on both iOS and Android. So while it may seem convenient to just use Apple passwords on your iPhone or Google passwords on your Android phone, you're gonna have that same challenge where if you ever switch platforms, you're gonna have to go through all that setup again. Plus, with a cross-platform password manager like 1Password or Bitwarden, you can access your authenticator codes on your computer, which I personally love. I kind of hate having to pull out my phone, open the app, and manually type the code in my computer. With 1Password, the codes are autofilled in addition to the username and password being autofilled, so it really automates that setup. Now, the argument against this is that you're putting all your eggs in one basket, so if your password manager gets compromised, well, yikes, now they have access to your username, password, and your 2FA code. So I completely understand if you want to keep this isolated, but I just wanted to point that out as an option because it is more convenient. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss out when I post new videos. And if you're interested in using a password manager, but you aren't sure which one is right for you, check out this video.